NBA has officially wrapped up. How's it going, everybody? This is Andrew from Angle. I'm joined today by Braxton as well. We are going to cover the remaining trades that have happened since we posted the video earlier, covering the Dan Gafford move to Dallas, as well as the Gordon Hayward move to Oklahoma City. So we're covering the moves that have happened since then. But first, we're going to go over some non-roster stuff. Kind of just covering the big, non-trade stuff, kind of covering the big teams that were involved in the trade deadline. So the Lakers didn't make any trades today. DeJounte Murray remained with the Atlanta Hawks. Bruce Brown remained with Toronto. And then one roster move of significance that was not a trade today was that Killian Hayes was cut from the Detroit Pistons. So starting us off with some value there, that's going to be good for Marcus Sasser, as well as it's going to be good for Quentin Grimes, who Braxton covered in one of the videos earlier following those Knicks trades. But we have a few other trades to get through today. First off, Braxton, thank you for stepping in for those two videos earlier today, man. I really appreciate it. We got one trade to start us off here. This is going to be Dennis Schroder being sent over from Toronto to the Brooklyn Nets. He goes along there with Thaddeus Young, and this is in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie, who is expected to be waived. So what do you feel the fantasy impact is on that move, and how do you feel about that move?
Yeah, so I want to touch on Bruce Brown first. I know you mentioned him as a non-move, but I think this actually helps his value. Um, Schroeder was kind of taking away some of those touches that maybe Bruce could have had on that bench unit, and with Dinwiddie getting waived, I would expect maybe Bruce to see an increase in value, and I think it's possible they pick up his team option next year so that they have that big expiring contract that teams like sometimes, especially because he's a useful player on a big expiring contract like that, right? I also think it helps Schroeder because, um, in Toronto, he was kind of getting phased out a little bit behind Barnes. There's just not enough touches to go around for him to maintain that pace he was at earlier in the season. And in Brooklyn, I mean, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't just step right into Dinwiddie's role and take all of those touches that Dinwiddie has. I mean, even if he comes off the bench, I feel like behind Ben Simmons, that is, he's still better off than he was in Toronto for the rest of the season. So I'd be feeling good if I was a Schroeder owner in both dynasty and redrafts. And then Dinwiddie, I will just touch on. He's definitely a drop in redrafts if you haven't already. He was pretty harmful. The counting stats were kind of keeping him afloat, but anywhere he signs now, he's very likely to have a more reduced role for the rest of this season.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think whatever Dinwiddie's role is going to be moving forward is going to be a reduced role. I mean, he could potentially be. I think that teams that were interested was like the Sixers, the Pelicans, the Lakers. All these are situations where Dinwiddie is going to have a reduced role there. So he's definitely a 12-team drop. Dennis is a hold for now because he should get a good amount of playing time there over in Brooklyn. And then I don't think anything's going to happen with Thaddeus Young there either.
Oh, I will add real quick, Thaddeus Young leaving, I do like for Kelly Olynyk, and I did talk about this a little bit earlier.
That's a good point.
Kelly Olynyk should just slide right into those minutes Thaddeus Young been playing the past couple weeks. Which is like that 18 to 20-minute role. So
right, he might even take whatever was remaining of Jonte Porter's minutes too, I would assume. So, and all the Thaddeus Young, Jonte Porter, maybe even some of Puel's minutes too. Those are definitely going to go towards Smelly Kelly now. Okay, so let's move on. So before we get to what I consider to be the blockbuster of today, we're going to move on to, or I'm just going to go over some really small trades that didn't really have any fantasy ramifications. So Robin Lopez got traded from Milwaukee to Sacramento, where he's expected to get waived. Corey Joseph was traded to the Pacers. This is going to be good for Lester Quinones's value on the Golden State Warriors. So that opened up those minutes for him there. I mean, Joseph was barely playing and Lester took his spot anyways. Delano Banton was shipped to Portland for a protected second-round pick. And so Banton came from Boston, and Boston needed to make that move because they got Jaden Springer from the 76ers today for a second-round pick. So this, I guess we'll talk about this one a little bit. Do you think this is opening up something like, for a Kyle Lowry or something like that? Because they got rid, what we'll talk about in a little bit here, is they got rid of Patrick Beverley and now they just got rid of Jaden Springer too. So like all that's left there. I mean, this is good for Buddy Hield and it could potentially be good for DeAnthony Melton too, but there's kind of just a gaping hole there in the 76ers backcourt. Do you think this is, potentially waiting for a Dinwiddie or a Lowry?
I think it has to be. I mean, and we can talk about the Beverly one now. I mean, they got
Yeah. So
campaign and
that was Beverly going to the Bucks, being reunited with Doc Rivers. That was in exchange for Cameron Payne and a second round pick.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like they're messing with the locker room chemistry a little bit there. Obviously, Beverly's quite the character, and he had been putting up nice numbers recently, since in games without Maxey and then also without Embiid. I think it has to be making way for Kyle Lowry or Dinwiddie or something like that. I mean, we know the Sixers have been linked to Lowry ever since he got traded from Toronto a couple years ago, right? So, I just it seems a little pointless to me. I have a hard time believing Lowry is going to be an upgrade over what Beverly was. I understand that uh they got the second round pick for moving Beverly, but I don't know. It's just a little bit disappointing. And then moving Springer as well. That one's kind of a head scratcher to me as well. I mean, if it's to sign Dinwiddie, sure, but Springer just I don't know. This team doesn't have not a lot of cost controlled guys left on this team, right? With
That is true.
outside of Maxey, I think he has an additional year left on his rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken, or did he already sign an extension? I can't remember, but yeah, there's not a lot of cost controlled guys. It's just a weird composition of players right now. So I don't like the Springer move here.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that should have been useful to them in their backcourt too. I don't know, I don't fully see the reason why they needed to let him go. Trying to look at it right here from I don't see an extension for Maxi yet on Hoops Hype. I see the qualifying offer for next year of
Yeah.
6 million, but I'm not seeing an extension yet for Maxi. So they're still working with that one there. Okay, so that covers what went on with the 76ers. One more small trade to cover before we get into a couple of trades that did have some fantasy ramifications today. Doug McDermott was reunited with the Indiana Pacers. This was in exchange for a second round pick and Marcus Morris, who is expected to be waived. I know you touched on the Pacers earlier. Does this have any fantasy ramifications for them, or is it just, adding another shooter?
I don't think so. I think it's definitely
Yeah.
somebody they want to be able to kind of
I
pop
mean,
off the bench for 4 minutes and
right,
and,
because obviously
and
we want
knock
to
down
see
a couple
more
threes.
of Ben Shepherd or somebody like that. Obviously more Neesmith minutes, stuff like that too. I don't really think that McDermott needs minutes for this Pacers team. I mean, he can be helpful at times, but yeah,
Yeah, if there was anybody to be slightly concerned about, I think it would be Ben Shepherd. If they want to get McDermott in the rotation, Ben Shepherd is really the big loser there. I don't think Nemhard or McConnell is going to be affected by that at all. Those are the kind of three big winners from the Buddy Hield trade in my eyes. But instead of Shepherd or McConnell kind of being the fourth guy on the outside looking in, like with Hield and those other three, it'll kind of be McDermott, who I think is barely in the rotation
mm-hmm.
ever. And
I agree.
yeah, fantasy ramifications, not much, I would say, for
Right,
McDermott.
right. But for Dynasty, Ben Shepherd managers continue to hang on for sure. Do not let him go. All right, so let's move on. So this is the other move that happened today we haven't covered yet that did have some fantasy ramifications. So there was a three-way trade that went down. Let's see, the Phoenix Suns end up getting Royce O'Neal from the Brooklyn Nets as well as David Roddy from the Memphis Grizzlies. It was the Suns that sent out those 3 second-round picks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they sent out the 3 second-round picks: Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, Chimezie Metu, and Jordan Goodwin. Yuta and Metu went to the Memphis Grizzlies, and then Bates-Diop and Goodwin went to the Brooklyn Nets. So do you see like a performance? Because, someone like Royce O'Neal is a 12-team streamable guy. He's not must roster, but there are days where, okay, I'm going to stream in Royce O'Neal. I kind of need what he provides. Do you think he still provides that pretty much that same value over in Phoenix?
I don't know. I mean, his minutes have been trending down recently in Brooklyn, and he's been pretty unusable in that under 20 minute a night role. He really needs the 28 to 30 minute a night to be able to put up those base level, just usable enough stats that you're talking about. I think this is not good for his value, although it's good for the Suns in real life. Um, maybe on nights where they're banged up, right? I mean, obviously Beal and Durant aren't the most durable at this point in their careers, so I could see he's somebody that you can stick into a starting lineup and not really mess up the flow at all.
Hmm.
I don't know. I would just wish the Suns, Jordan Goodwin, Metu, and really all four of those guys are guys that I like,
Yeah,
and
I
just
agree.
they didn't give any run to. They seemed
Hmm.
insistent on playing Eric Gordon so many minutes. When Beal was out, Jordan Goodwin looked great. Now that
Right.
Beal's back, Goodwin had just vanished from the rotation.
I mean, for
So
a team that's top heavy like the Suns, with Durant, Booker, and Beal at the top, you like those, minimum guys that they add onto the bench to fill out their depth. So over the offseason, I thought they did a great job when I saw them signing in, Watanabe, Metu, Goodwin, and also Bates Diop too. So to see them
yeah,
trade all that depth away was a bit surprising. I mean, they did get a good player back in Royce O'Neal. I do like Royce as a fantasy option, but I mean, I think the biggest winner from that deal might be Chimezi Metu just because of how thin Memphis's front court is. Do you kind of agree with that? That Metu might get? I mean, he might not be 12 team must roster, but there
yeah.
could be points in the season where he's worth a look.
Some big silly season potential for Met too. I think in some nights he had started a couple games this year, and putting up like 20 points, 15 boards, stuff like that. He can put up some numbers if given the opportunity. It was disappointing to see like Nurkic missed a couple games, like a week or two ago, and they went with Eubanks instead of Metu, because you really want to see Metu not necessarily have a chance to shine, but he can put up some numbers, right? And a team that's as banged up as the Grizzlies are, and currently their only healthy center is Trey Jameson, whose um, contract expires tomorrow, as of recording this.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see Metsu getting some runs, splitting minutes with Brandon Clark down the stretch. He's young enough to where it's somebody they can bring back next season on a minimum
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
want
All
to.
these Jameson owners who are hyped need to be aware. Number one, Metsu's here now, and they need to be aware that Brandon Clark is coming. He is coming. So they got to be aware of that. So, good move there for, I guess it's a good move for Memphis. I mean, Roddy wasn't really working out for them. They got a couple guys in that can help just, be healthy bodies for the rest of the year. They're going to bring in, I think the second round picks went to them, right? Or did it go to Brooklyn?
They went to Brooklyn, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. Not bad then. Okay. So let's go into what I consider to be today's blockbuster. So, I mean, if we're talking about, the real life basketball winners of this trade deadline, I think that's going to go to both the New York Knicks and what we're going to talk about here, which is the Dallas Mavericks. I really like the upgrades that the Mavericks made in their front court. So, Braxton, your Hornets are fully clear in house, man. We got Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a top two protected 2027 first round pick in exchange for PJ Washington. I do want to point out before you get started here that Luka Doncic has a player option for the 26-27 season. So, what are your thoughts on this move, Brax, for your Hornets?
Oh man, I love PJ, and I'm really disappointed they moved him. He was on a nice, team friendly contract. It's one of those depreciating ones that ends up as a steal towards the end. And he fit the timeline, in my opinion. As far as the return, I mean, the first is nice. Yeah, Doncic does have that player option, like you mentioned. I have a hard time believing he leaves Dallas and that Mark Cuban doesn't do everything he can in his power to keep him there. As demonstrated with the couple moves today with this one and the Gafford trade, who are both under contract, I think, until uh, through the year after. Like he would have to pick up that up through Luca's player option. They're under contract, right? So they can have like this core of guys together for the next few years. In terms of fantasy value, hopefully PJ stops chucking random threes and he's able to get that 32% 3-point percentage up to something a little bit more respectable.
Mm-hmm.
He's exactly what they had hoped for with Grant Williams when they signed him this offseason to kind of fill that stretch four role. Williams
Mhm.
has just been so terrible. I think the
I
quote
mean,
the
I've
other
always
day,
thought in general that PJ is better than Grant. So, I mean, Grant got more money than PJ over this offseason, right?
I don't think that's right. Grant got 448 or something like that, and PJ
Oh,
got
okay, fair.
348, I think.
Okay,
So
that's how it should be then.
yeah, Grant Williams, I think the quote the other day was like, "It's so easy." It's something along the lines of how easy it was to play with Luca. How you just need to like eat popcorn and make 3-point shots. Um, he hasn't been making his 3-point shots, and he's. I'm just not a fan of him as a player. Um,
Hmm.
so, and I will add, there's been there's only a couple teams with in regards to playoff schedules this year for fantasy. There's only a couple teams that have 2-game weeks in the 20, 21, 22 playoff schedule, which is I believe the standard. But something interesting to note is that Charlotte and Dallas have almost identical playoff schedules. So if you weren't worried about Charlotte's playoff schedule, I would not be worried about Dallas's playoff schedule either. If you're a PJ Washington owner, Grant Williams, I mean, he's gonna play. He'll probably get more shots in Charlotte. Is he gonna make them? I don't know. I mean, the Charlotte is just. I don't know what they're gonna. The rest of the season. I mentioned earlier. I don't know if LaMelo Ball is gonna come back this season. So
Hmm.
it remains to be seen how they're gonna score points at all.
Right.
I don't know if Seth
Well, I mean,
Curry's
we
gonna
did. I
play.
think. Well, you did cover Micic in the other video. I like that he's there
Mhm.
now. That's probably a good, at least steady hand to have
Yeah.
while this rebuild continues to play out. I wonder if you guys might play Seth Curry a little bit. I know obviously it's not great to be playing Grant Williams a bunch, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the rotation plays out in Charlotte moving forward.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like a clear winner, obviously, aside from just pumping more usage into Brandon Miller throughout the
Bridges
remainder
is
of the
going to
season.
be insane down the stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Uh
already
huh.
been insane with PJ in the lineup. PJ was kind of leading that bench unit, and they've shipped him off without really anybody to kind of replace that scoring void. So guys like Trey Mann and Micic, like you mentioned, have potential at least for the remainder of this season to put up some decent numbers. Micic maybe a little bit more lower upside than Mann, just because Mann is he'll chuck up anything and just step back
Right.
threes, kinds of crap like that. While Micic is a little bit of a slower player, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's some there is going to be a winner here. I think it just kind of remains to be seen who that's going to be. Somebody else is going to have to score points besides Bridges and Miller.
Right. Maybe a Nick Smith, who was, a favorite of mine. I liked both of those Arkansas guards coming out of high school, Nick Smith Jr. and Anthony Black. So keep a close eye on him for the remainder of the season. But that's going to do it for us with our trade alert videos. The NBA deadline is over. So next time you're probably going to be seeing trade alert videos from us is going to be coming on draft day when people are able to get some trades going again. And that's most likely when trades are going to be going down. So thank you for tuning in to our videos today for deadline day. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at AngleFantasyBB. Also, check out our website, www.anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. Thank you for tuning in today.